let the tasting begin. So first up, we have the American version of Newcastle Brown Ale. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a Geordie's Schooner, which I understand is what you should be drinking this out of, but this will have to do. And the other thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna start referring to this as Newcastle USA. Sounds like an amusement park. Yeah, there's also no bridge on the star. It's just the star, but you can see like kind of the star. It's off to the side. Yeah, definitely not the original. Well, Lagunitas, Heineken, whoever came up with this, I'm sure this was a fun experiment, but seriously.
Yes, it's time to stop. No, this is not okay. It's time to stop. It's time to stop.
Just go back to the original. Really, it's time to stop. While this beer is fine, this is, when I think of an English brown ale, this is not an English brown ale. It's far too hoppy. And it tastes like, this tastes like something I would have in a Lagunitas bottle. And I get it's made by Lagunitas, but this is not Newcastle Brown Ale. This is like a Lagunitas beer that's in a Newcastle Brown Ale bottle and is sort of vaguely English brown ale inspired. So yeah, I'm not too happy about that. I'm gonna finish this off. Yeah, there's almost no sweetness in this at all. I mean, maybe just a tiny little bit, but it basically tastes like a, I don't want to say it's quite an IPA, but it's almost like a mix of sort of a vaguely sort of American kind of IPA lager type of thing with a little bit of masquerading brown ale-ness sort of sprinkled in for good measure. But this is not really what a brown ale should be. So yeah. Not off to a great start. Let's see if it gets any better. Unfortunately, I would say we're 0 for 1 at the moment, but let's keep going. So next up, we have Boddingtons Pub Ale. Can you hear that? That's the sound of a widget. So let's see if the widget does what it's designed to do. Okay, this beer is definitely bubbling. Let me get a paper towel there. Clean that up that I happen to just keep on hand. Okay, this is all right. Well, oh boy. Okay, we might need to cut here and get this cleaned up. So action again. Let's continue on opening this thing up. Okay, there we go. Now hopefully the head on this is not going to be completely busted. Let's see if the widget does what it's designed to do. And you can see, right, that the bottom part of the beer, it's kind of becoming very clear, and the top part is sort of cloudy as the sort of the creamy head, so to speak, is sort of forming up. Though again, the fact that this kind of blew up on me a little bit there, is sort of not great. There's definitely some creamy head there. Keep wiping this up. Wow, usually this doesn't happen. If you've been watching the channel, you know this doesn't usually happen. But I don't remember dropping this, but maybe I did. I don't know. Anyway, well it's probably the fullest pour that I've made. Okay, so you can kind of see there, right? It's still forming up, but there's sort of that smoother head on this beer. So yeah, okay, the widget still worked even with the technical problems aside. The can sort of blowing up on me. There's still a little bit of that sort of creamy head at the top. While there are bubbles, it's not quite as it's not quite as frothy. It's more sort of dense. And yeah, I would definitely say this is a golden color. Let's take a taste. I gotta say, it could be the widget that has that nice, smooth, sort of understated flavor that I think of when I think of beer that's been pulled from a keg in an English pub. It's quite nice, it's very enjoyable to drink, and it's a very easily sort of sippable beer. The creamy head is definitely there. It kind of adds a little bit of kind of just nice, smooth thickness to the beer. This is more, this is a much more enjoyable drinking experience. Yeah, very easy to drink. Like a number of the other sort of, English pub beers that I've talked about. More interesting than just a basic lager. There's more going on here, there. And it's just got a nice kind of thickness to it. But it's not something where my palate feels really sort of overpowered, or like there's, sort of tingling or sharp or bitter or dry sensations after I drink the beer. It's sort of, there's not too much in my palate. It's just kind of an enjoyable drinking experience, and then it kind of, the flavors kind of dissipate very quickly after I finish my drink. So yeah, I'm gonna finish this off. A good sort of middle of the road English pub ale. And it's definitely going above this guy. Moving on. So, 2 down, 2 to go. Next up, Old Speckled Hen. Distinctive English Pale Ale, 5% ABV. And this is imported directly from the UK, and you can see it there at the top, Moreland Brewery. The logo's not particularly big, but it's actually, you can see a guy in a tricorn hat and a wig, perhaps Mr. Moreland from the early 1700s. Very nice color, more of that sort of, orangey amber color. Yeah, and I can smell in the nose a bit of sort of that, kind of a toffee sweetness. That's quite nice too. The difference with this one versus Boddingtons is that this has much more notable, sharper flavors to it. So if we think of it as kind of like sweet, mellow bitter, and malty, this is definitely leading with the mellow bitter. So if you want a pale ale that's got more of a bitter flavor to it, well, a premium bitters, this is going to be the one for you. Yeah, I mean, even after just taking 1 or 2 sips, I still have kind of a reasonably dry kind of bitter, and I described this one beer almost like a slight tingling sensation still in my palate. So it's still there. So this is definitely a beer that kind of like sticks. It kind of sticks in your palate. So if you kind of want to, if you enjoy having kind of a more bitter, dry flavor in your palate, you'll quite enjoy this. So. Yeah, even on the second taste, same flavor profile. Sometimes I know it switches between like drink 1 and drink 2, but this is the same flavor profile in the second drink. Very dry. I would say not really sweet, actually. I would say this is a very, very dry pale ale. It does have a nice sort of full, strong body to it, which is good. And I think that is, sort of the use of good malts kind of at the base, but you're not really getting the malts, you're getting the dry, bitter, sort of mellow hops in a beer like this. So perfectly enjoyable if you enjoy that style of sort of an English pub ale, sort of an English bitters. So last, but certainly, or hopefully not least, we have Trooper. Look at this guy. So just talk about it really quick, right? Created by Iron Maiden, Robinson's, the Trooper, or Trooper Premium British Beer, and this is sort of a smaller and kind of pushed in version of the Iron Maiden artwork on that album, where you can see, red coat, very skeletal, holding a Union Jack, and you can it's just out of the frame here, but he would have a saber sort of on the album artwork. I'll put a link. You've seen it, and. Yeah, it's actually from, actually it says it's from Cheshire. And Cheshire is, still in a reasonably similar area to Manchester, kind of in that, it's in the, greater Manchester area. Nice color in this, nicely formed frothy head. Golden, I guess, maybe a very deep golden. This is sort of a very deep golden, almost bordering on amber. Yeah, and I'm getting sort of a lighter smell on this, which is very interesting for, for sort of an English ale like this. But yeah, I'm getting, maybe not quite citrus, but sort of in that lighter sort of camp. There is a little bit of a very, very little bit of a hint of kind of lemony citrus, I would say. But what's very nice about this is it's a very sort of subsumed flavor to that general framework of what I would think of when I think of sort of an English pub ale, something, you know, kind of these two. So it makes it stand out and it makes it kind of more unique, actually, because it's a flavor you don't normally get, right? I don't ever think of citrus in any way as being a part of kind of, well, English, you know, sort of English best bitters, pale ales, you know, that kind of general family. But this has worked in quite nicely, and it still has sort of all of those characteristic notes you'd associate with a pale ale, where, you know, it's got a bit of malt, got a bit of dryness, got a bit of sweetness, all sort of mixed together. But that sort of subtle but definitely present lemon note really got my attention. Well, it's not sweet at all, I would say, but it's not even particularly dry. It's dry, but it's not bitter. So I would describe this as it's a dry English ale with just a little tiny bit of citrus zest to it. Quite enjoyable to drink, actually. And my palate after those sips is quite dry. Maybe there's a little bit of bitterness there, so there's definitely some very notable hops. I'm not getting much in the way of malt, other than the fact that the body of the beer feels it's pretty good. It's pretty solid. It doesn't feel weak, really, in any sense of the word. So you know, that's a good use of malt. It's very unique, and I like that little lemon zest, and I think that in some ways is what's really doing it for me. It's really kind of making it stand out in some ways compared to sort of a lot of English ales. So yeah, I have to think about this. This is going to be another sort of reasonably difficult ranking, not for this one. But I'm going to think about where this is going to go relative to these other ones. So I've thought about it for a little bit, and I've come to my final assessment. In fourth place, just like seriously, in fourth place, American Newcastle Brown Ale, Newcastle USA. Not even gonna call it Newcastle Brown Ale. Newcastle USA, no. Boddingtons Pub Ale. So this is by far sort of the mellowest of the three, and I would say it's the most sort of easily drinkable if you want something that's kind of smooth and creamy, but there aren't really kind of strong flavors that you're thinking about. You just kind of want a nice, smooth, creamy, you know, reasonably full-bodied English pub ale that you can kind of, you know, sip on, have a drink with some friends, and you know, and not really think about so much the beer, but it's just kind of an enjoyable drinking experience. So for that, I'm kind of putting it in third place. So Old Speckled Hen is also a very good premium English bitters. This one, compared to Boddingtons, has much stronger flavors to it, especially those sort of what I would describe as non-IPA, but sort of mellow hops flavor. I would say very, very little sweetness to this at all. It's a very sort of bitter, dry English bitter with a bit of some, maybe, now that I think about it, very, very subtle kind of fruit flavors. And that's all kind of on top of a good, solid kind of malty base. And then in first place, I do have to give it to Trooper by Robinsons. And the reason for that is I just find the incorporation of a very, very subtle lemon flavor, but really incorporated in just a very nicely done way to just give it those extra points. It's not the kind of flavor I usually associate with sort of English pub ales, and the fact that it's worked in there, but it's also balanced with some dryness and some good maltiness. Again, not really a sweet beer. I wouldn't say any of these are sweet. Like, I'm not getting sort of, you know, toffee flavors or anything like that, or sort of a caramel kind of feeling. It's very sort of dry. A lot of these are very dry and bitter, but with good sort of malt underneath. This has all of that. It's similar to the Old Speckled Hen, but it's not quite as bitter. And it's, I think, all in all, it's a slightly better balance of sort of different flavors that you're getting in this one. So But I think it's just, I really like that it's just got this nice little lemon tang, but it's worked in just so nicely to sort of a golden English pale ale. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. If you want to go ahead, like this video, maybe subscribe to the channel. It helps us make new content going forward. You can even leave a comment if you're feeling adventurous. Always just, remember, please keep it respectful. And I'll see you next time.